What's up, YouTube? Wayne here, back at it again with another video for you. Guess what? I watched it. Superman and Lois. Let's get into it. So, Superman and Lois is the new CW series starring Taylor Hoechlin, I don't know how to say his name, whatever his name is, and Elizabeth Tulloch. Those are the stars from, as you can remember, the Supergirl series, or the mixed event between all the different Crisis on Infinite Earth. I was kind of afraid for this series because I didn't like his costume, right? And I did not like him as Superman. He's kind of scrawny, kind of skinny dude. Lois is pretty okay, but I really enjoyed this. I gotta tell you, I enjoyed this. First thing I want to mention is the score. The score of this movie, I guess it was like a movie because it was like an hour-long premiere. The score of this series is so good. The music is so good that it lets you feel all the feelings, all the tingly feelings, all the things inside. Cool thing about it is they changed his costume for this series. I was so happy that they finally changed his costume because that crappy costume that they had in the series, I hope they don't go back to it. I don't know what time frame this takes place in between now and what happened on Crisis on Infinite Earth. I don't really know, but the two actors are very, very good. Now, this takes place in Superman later years when he gets married to Lois and they end up having two kids. Two kids, because one of them has superpowers. We'll talk about that later in the video. But, so, they come, it starts off with Superman after he gets his powers. He has like the original Superman comic costume on, and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna do like some retro costume. He has that on, right? And he comes in, flies in. Oh yeah, spoilers. I'm gonna spoil everything. I'm talking about the whole episode here. Yeah, I'm gonna put the costume right here. This is the costume that he has on, right? And he comes in, he saves his kid, and he's like, oh man, cool costume. He's like, my mom made it for me. Which is really dorky and really funny at the same time. I really enjoyed it. I got to go back and watch it again, to be honest. I'm talking about this off my first impressions. I haven't watched it again. I haven't, dug deep into it. But it just basically telling the story about him and Lois and what they're going through raising their teenage boys, right? So, after that, it flashes forward to Superman he is now, and there's a nuclear power plant that's erupting, right? And you're like, what's going on? Why is this nuclear power plant comes on? Of course, Superman comes in, and his costume in this series is more like the Henry Cavill costume, where he's all buffed up, and he's like the super strong Superman, which is cool. You can tell it's a lot of padding, but still, it's cool that they're actually giving him a more relative costume to what we see in the DC, what is it, MU or CMU, or just the DC universe, the movie universe. Cool thing, they actually come in, he saves it, he goes to the ocean and just freezes the ocean, takes a big old chunk of ice and drops it in the nuclear power plant to seal it. And it's actually Lois's dad, who's the Army general or whatever his name is. I don't know, I'll put his name right here. And he's like, oh, so can I take my kids fishing? So Superman, between him and his family members, his whole family knows who he is besides his children. He didn't want to let his children know so they wouldn't have to deal with the burden of it. But that's going to come back to bite him later on in the episode, right? So his sons are played by, I got them right here, are Alex Garfin and Jordan Elsas. I don't know how to say his name. I probably butchered it. I apologize. So I think that they are perfectly cast. Alex plays Jordan Kent, and Jordan plays Jonathan Kent. That's kind of weird that they play those two characters. So Jordan's supposedly, I guess on the spectrum of autism, or he just has personality disorder. He doesn't cope well with society and what's going on. But he's not playing it. He's playing it more like the guy who played the Blue Ranger in the most recent Power Rangers movie. He's playing it like, I'm just an intelligent dude who's socially awkward, which is really cool. The kid actors or the teenage actors in this show are very good. And of course, Jonathan, with his grandfather's name, having his grandfather's name, is the most athletic kid in school. And Clark and Lois are starting to believe that he might have gifts just like him, right? And you're like, oh man, we're gonna have Superboy, and it's gonna be an athlete. Oh man, and he's kind of cocky and he shows it and stuff like that. I think the two of them are perfectly cast for Clark and Lois's kids or Superman's kids. But let's zoom on in. Clark consistently lies to them about who he is, why he's always disappearing, I mean, one thing about me and Superman, he's not my favorite character because it's like he takes the glasses off and puts the glasses on and nobody knows who he is, not even his own family, which is ironic and stupid, but whatever. It's comic books. That's comics. And so they're having issues with Jordan, trying to get him to understand that he has to put forth effort, he has to achieve goals and things like that. And they're not really telling like a superhero story. The writing, it's well paced, it's well put together. They're just basically telling the story about Family Man. Oh man, huge spoiler right here. So after Superman's doing all this thing, he gets a call from his mom, and his mom's like, come on, do this, let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. And really, she's basically pleading for him to come back home. She's like subtle pleading. And I think the reason why they wrote it this way is to just get you drawn in to that this guy, Clark, has this struggle with his family. That he has this struggle with being Superman and Clark Kent. And that's what tied me to it, because I don't believe DC characters can be written well in the real world, because in comics they really don't struggle with the same things that we struggle with in everyday life. They're kind of perfect. Superman never makes the wrong decision really in the comics. I know I haven't read all the comics, but I mean, you got to think about it. All his villains he can technically beat, but he holds back. Unless they have kryptonite or things like that, he just kind of does his own thing. I think that this show is paced well. I'm going to make this video a two-parter because it's going to run long. I'm going to make it part 2. So basically, Clark comes home after saving the world. He walks in with his son. He's like, Lois is like, you got to apologize to Jonathan, you got to apologize to Jordan, or no, you got to apologize to Jordan, and you miss Jonathan such and such and such. And they were doing group therapy as a family, and Jordan basically just blows his dad off, and he's playing video games. It looks like Mortal Kombat, and he's like, man, you make a good Superman. That's what Clark says to his son, and he's like, Superman's lame. Which is hilarious. He's like, Superman's lame. He just like totally blows him off, right? And I love it. I love it. Now, stay tuned for part 2, and we'll get into the rest of it. Thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe.